So Aunt Anna was the second wife. He had been married before. The family didn't approve of the first marriage. She was an actress that he met somewhere along the way. Aunt Anna was European um, and Jewish, and the family approved of her. They liked her a lot. They had no children until 1947, when they were in Europe and went to an orphanage where there were refugee children, and they adopted Francis and Marvin. And I've had opportunity to talk to Francis died 3 years ago. Risa, that was her stage name, was Risa Schwartz. Francis died 3 years ago. Marvin died maybe about 6 or 7 years ago. And I talked to Francis's daughter on the phone, and she talked about, and there's also in some of the books, Francis wrote some things about her experience with the Schwartzes. They were older. I mean, he was 60 years old when they adopted Francis and Marvin. And they had a family life, but I don't think it ever was a loving, maybe with Aunt Anna, but not with him. I think he was difficult, if you want to know the truth. I think he was a difficult parent. I think he was very narcissistic. And it was very nice of them to adopt these two kids, but I just don't think it ever gelled as a family. I don't think Francis and Marvin ever thought of themselves as part of the Schwartz family, because they had connections in Belgium, and still have those connections in Belgium. So, yeah. They lived in Manhattan on, in this. It was a very posh apartment. That's what I remember. Much nicer than our apartment.
Well, just to go on the personality part a little bit, how did the family describe him?
Narcissistic, full of himself, detached, disconnected. Those were words that were used. Never unloving. I mean, he was a loving brother, but I think that time in London really alienated him from the family, and in some ways maybe alienated them from him too. He came back being very different than them. He wasn't religious. He didn't keep kosher. He was his own man by the time he came back, but self-centered, incredibly self-centered, to the point where my parents went to his funeral, and my parents came back and said everybody who spoke about how incredible he was and what a great artist he was, but that he was full of himself. I think the fame got to him. I do.